Okay, I'm going to talk about the relationship between wealth inequality and unemployment. So let's first just talk about unemployment. So, what might cause unemployment to increase or to decrease? Well, let's think about this. So, if unemployment is increasing, that means companies are laying people off. Why are they laying people off? Well, because they can't afford to pay them. Why can't they afford to pay them? Well, because there's not enough revenue coming in, right? Why is there not enough revenue? Because those companies are not selling enough goods and services, right? So, in other words, there is not enough demand for the goods and services that that company is producing. So, there's not enough revenue to pay the wage expenses of the employees, so they have to fire the employees to stay in business, right? And this isn't a bad thing. We don't want companies to go out of business just because they were too stubborn to lay a few employees off. Okay, that's not good because that company may produce a very valuable good or service. On the other hand, we can think about this in the same way. Why would unemployment decrease? Well, because ultimately the company is bringing in more profits and they can afford to pay more wage expenses, and therefore they're going to hire more people because they're bringing enough revenue in to pay those people, right? In other words, what that means is that they're selling enough goods and services and they're perhaps having a hard time meeting the demand of the market. So they're going to hire more people to increase the supply, right? So this is how unemployment works, right? If companies are making more money, they're going to be able to hire people. If they're making less money, they're going to have to fire people, right? Checks out. So, what is the relationship with wealth inequality and unemployment? Well, I'm going to give you two scenarios to kind of explain this. Okay, so first scenario, we're going to imagine that there is $1 billion of profit, and the board of directors and the shareholders they take it upon themselves to distribute this $1 billion in profit to the working class citizens of the various employees or the various companies that created that profit. So let's say that this $1 billion in profit was created by the S&P 500, and the shareholders again and the board of directors they distribute that profit to the working class citizens that work for those companies. What is the working class going to do with that money? Well, again, it's $1 billion. Let's say it's 10,000 employees, 10,000 working class citizens. That's $100,000 a piece. What are they going to do with that $100,000? Well, they're going to do one of three things. They're going to spend it, they're going to save it, or they're going to invest it. That's the three things you can do with money, apart from burning it if you're the Joker or whatever. So they're going to spend some, they're going to save some, and they're going to invest some. Now, the proportions that the working class dedicates to spending, saving, and investing is very important. Okay, so the working class is probably going to spend quite a bit of that $100,000. Why? Well, because they're the working class. That implies that they work for a living. That implies that there's probably some material improvements that they can make to their lives with that $100,000. So they're going to maybe they buy a new car to replace their old beater that's breaking down every day, or maybe they get health insurance. Maybe they improve their health insurance. Bottom line, there's plenty of things that the working class can spend that money on, and they're going to spend that money. Now, on the other hand, maybe they save a little again, and maybe they invest a little. Now, for example, say I work in the pizza business, and you work in you sell cars. You work in the automobile business. Maybe I buy a new car, and maybe I invest a little in Ford. Maybe you buy more pizza. Maybe you invest a little money in Domino's or whatever pizza company I work for. We are mutually benefiting each other's companies, and that's going to help raise our wages when those new profits come in for that new quarter, right? In theory, so long as that board of directors and those stockholders, those shareholders, decide to give us those profits, right? So let's imagine a different scenario, though. Let's imagine that instead of that billion dollars in profit of that S&P 500 being distributed to the working class citizens, let's imagine that they give them to billionaires. They give them to the richest shareholders, right? Let's say that they give all those profits to 5 billionaires, right? That means $200 million a piece to those billionaires. What is the effect on the economy going to be? Well, again, those 5 billionaires, can do one of three things. They can spend, save, or invest. But again, remember, I pointed out that the proportion by which we save, spend, and invest that money is very important to pay attention to. So those billionaires, they're absolutely going to spend some of that money. Maybe they go out and buy a couple supercars. Maybe they buy a mansion, a yacht, whatever, right? But beyond that, they're going to save a little, probably, but they're also going to invest. Now, most of the $1 billion that those billionaires get from that profit is going to be invested. It's going to be invested in probably back into the S&P 500, right? And what that means is that's going to, in theory, enable those companies to hire more people, right? But it doesn't exactly work like that. Why? Because again, if you took the profits and gave them to 5 billionaires, those 5 billionaires cannot possibly consume what 10,000 working class citizens can consume. 10,000 working class citizens might take a chunk of their $100,000 and buy a TV. But 5 billionaires have no use for 2,000 TVs apiece, right? Each, again, 10,000 TVs to each of those working class citizens. What billionaire on the planet has a use for 2,000 TVs apiece? Remember, we took that $1 billion and gave it to 5 billionaires, right? So 10,000 divided by 5 is 2,000 TVs. The point I'm trying to make here is that, again, the billionaires cannot possibly consume what the working class can. There is just simply no way to make it happen. So they invest more of their money or save more of their money rather than spending it. And what that means is that they're investing in companies that no longer have the capacity to sell because the population, the working class, doesn't have the capacity to purchase what they're producing. In other words, if you create dependence on wage labor and then you take away the majority of the population's purchasing power through massive wealth inequality, you will collapse that economy because people won't be able to consume the products that are being produced. They won't be able to consume the products that are being produced by the corporations that the billionaires are investing in. Again, those billionaires cannot consume what the masses can. It's just not possible. Those billionaires could purchase 10 supercars apiece, and they still wouldn't be spending what the 10,000 working class citizens were. They're going to save and invest that money, and that money is just going to sit there, and it's going to perhaps be invested and lost in a company that is no longer able to sell what they used to because people can't afford to buy it. In other words, again, the wealth inequality causes the unemployment. And as I exemplified earlier, a decrease in wealth inequality creates employment. So if you have decreasing wealth inequality, there's a good, or rather, if you have increasing unemployment, it is because you have increasing wealth inequality. Now, there are caveats to this, but in general, it's true across the board. And in the United States, that's exactly what's happening here today. We have unemployment isn't super low or super high right now, but we have companies that lay off batches of employees at a time. And if we want to know why that is, it's because the economy is not creating the wealth distribution needed to enable working class citizens to purchase what the economy produces. This is how you kill an economy. Again, this is how you create runaway unemployment. And the only way to fix it is to, again, reduce the wealth inequality. You can do that one of two ways. I say in many videos, you can either create economic policy to redistribute the wealth, or you can create free market labor movements like unions and worker cooperatives. Or you can do both at the same time. I recommend both. Thanks for watching.